Thank you for joining me. Today we're going to show you how to install the autonomous REST connector on Windows. This is one of 3 videos. There's also one available that will show you how to install the autonomous REST connector on Mac iOS, as well as one that shows you how to set up for a demonstration. Without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is go to the Progress ESD field area on the Progress website. You will need to log in. I've already done that, so I'm not being asked for my credentials. Then we're going to go to the Progress Data Direct Connect component. Click on that folder, and in here we're going to go to Data Direct Connect JDBC 6X. So we click on that, and that will take us to where we will find the autonomous REST connector installation files. Click on that folder there, and you have the option of selecting the various different versions of the autonomous REST connector installers. The top one here, this one's for Linux, and we will use that later to install it on Mac OS, and also the Windows installer. There's also a folder that contains the documentation if you wish to download that as well. Now, I've already downloaded this folder, so rather than do it again, you can see here, this is the Progress zip file that I have downloaded. I've also uncompressed it, and we find here the contents of that folder. And all we need to do is install the JDBC driver. So just run as administrator, and we let the installer do its thing when it comes to installing an application. Just hit next, accept the license terms and conditions as per normal. Again, then we come to where we want to install the JDBC driver. In this case, this is quite important because we need to know this path for later in our tutorial. You can choose to install it wherever you like. In my case, I'm quite happy to go where all good program files live and put it in the program files folder. Hit next. And now we have a choice of either installing the evaluation license or the OEM license. Now, for those of you who are new to Progress, I'm going to show you where to find the license key because we're going to install a licensed version. So where that is we hit, first of all, we hit next, and you'll see here that you get presented with this checkbox, which is asking us for a control. Now, this may not be obvious, but what it's actually asking for is a license key. So where we find that is back where we downloaded the software. You'll see this tab here, which is called license. When you click on that, it opens up another page, and there we can see a number of license keys. Now, you can see there's one here for Salesforce, actually there's several for Salesforce. Same applies to Oracle JDBC Direct. And we get down to the bottom here, and we have the autonomous REST connector. Now, there's several different numbers. It doesn't really matter which one you choose. I'm going to go with the first one, so I select this key here, license key. Make sure you copy all the numbers, otherwise it won't work. And then we go back to our installer, and in the control box, we paste that key and hit validate. And as you can see, it's found the autonomous REST connector license and installing it for you. So just hit next. And in here, you put your name and company details, etc. And the serial number is found in the same place that you found the license key. It's just right above it. You'll see it here, it says serial number. Just copy that, copy, and paste. And away we go. So once we start our installation, you will be asked to accept some firewall rules. That's normal. It will take a few seconds. I'm going to speed up the process a little bit here rather than make you watch process bars go past. So we'll come back in a moment. Okay, so the installation is now complete, and we'll move on to the next part of our demonstration. So we're finished with this now, so we can close that down. And we've also finished with that, so we can close that down. Next, we need to decide what SQL IDE we're going to use, and there's a couple of options here. The one that's commonly used by a couple of the SEs in the US is Razor SQL, and the only problem with that is that you need to purchase a license. It's very good, it does everything it says on the tin, and does the job that for our purposes, quite well. However, it's not the only option. As an alternative to Razor SQL, we also have DBeaver. Now, I'll just open that up, but in the meantime, while that's opening, I'll also show you where to find it. If you just go to the DBeaver.io website, you can download a free version of this tool. It's very powerful. It's got lots of cool, funky things. If you're doing database modeling, etc., you can use it as a modeling tool, etc. Not really our needs for our purposes. For our purposes, it's just used to connect to the autonomous REST connector, and therefore any of the databases that we want to build via API. So because it's free is always better, right? Anyway, moving on. So once we've got the DBeaver opened, you'll be presented with this select a driver list. Now, there is a very extensive list of options here, but none of them are the autonomous REST connector. So we need to build a driver to connect to our ARC. And then what we do is go to Driver Manager, hit New, and then we give it a name, ARC, fairly straightforward really. Now we need to add a class name. Now where to find this is not obvious, so let me show you. We go to the Progress Autonomous REST Connector webpage, click on JDBC. This is also where you could download the JDBC connector as an alternative to going for the Progress ESD page. The reason I went that road is for new users within Progress who don't know where to find license keys, just to show how you can get a full license version of the software. So once we're on this page, we're going to go to Documentation. We're going to go to the non-authentication because that's what we're setting up for the moment. Hit Read, and then in the documentation where we want to find this this class path or this class driver name, we go on to this tab here and select this piece of text here. Hit Copy and go back to our installation of our ARC driver and hit Paste. Now, two things you need. Now, the first one here, the URL template, I'm just going to copy one that I prepared earlier. You just have to trust me that it's going to work. The reason I'm doing it this way is because this is a whole other tutorial on how to set this up. So trust me, this works. We'll talk more about this in the other video, which is showing you how to prepare for a demo as to how to set this URL up. The next thing we need is, as you may recall, I said that you need to know where to find the installation folder where you installed the progress files. Now, in my case, it's in Program Files, Progress, Data Direct, JDBC6, and then we need to go into the lib folder, and that's where this autorest.jar file is. So we need this jar file. This is the path that we want to put here. Once we've done that and hit OK, we will have completed the construction of our ARC driver. So now our ARC driver is completed. Let's use it. So how we do that? We close that down, then we go back into General, and on Connections, we right-click and hit Create New Connection. And voila, in our list of options to connect to a database, ARC is there. Hit Next. Now, there is a load of settings we could change here. We're not going to talk about that right now. That will be covered in the setting up for a demo video. For now, we'll just accept the defaults, hit Finish, and once we click on the down arrow, you'll find that the ARC should be attempting to connect to the API that I configured. And voila, there we are. So I'm not going to go into any more detail about what this does. We'll talk more about that in the setting up for a demo so you understand what the autonomous REST connector is doing. There's a whole lot of other material out there that explains how it works. So we will talk more about that later. But for now, thank you for watching, and you should successfully have installed the autonomous REST connector on Windows.